Well, welcome to Christ and Culture. This is Pastor Jeff Short, your Bible teacher and cultural analyst, and we are continuing on in the series with the SNAP EBT food stamps controversy that is brewing in our country right now. The government is still shut down over a dispute between the Republicans and Democrats in Washington over a budget. And so while the government is officially shut down, food stamps and the funding of food stamps have stopped, and that leaves some 42 million people, we find out, in this whole thing. 42 million people in the United States are drawing free government food through food stamps, and it leaves them up in the air as to how they're going to get their food for the month of November, which is a ridiculous situation because you have adults who supposedly have gone through life enough to realize that when you become an adult, you have to learn how to be self-sufficient. You have to learn how to feed yourself. You have to learn how to feed any children that you have fathered or birthed. If you're a woman, you have to learn how to make your way in life. And 42 million adults haven't figured out how to make their way in life yet, even though they are adults, and it is their responsibility to try to figure out how to put basic food on the table and put shelter overhead and provide basic clothing and the necessities of life. That's one of the big responsibilities of being an adult, is to have these figured out, or at least figuring them out as you go, and not looking to the government to give you a handout on food and housing and clothing and this and that and the other thing. So it's really a failure in adults being adults, and it's infantilizing 42 million people that are on this government food program. So we're continuing to cover this in the Detroit News, and Detroit News reveals today in this article, I believe it is, that almost 1/4 of the people in Detroit, that whole major city in the United States, almost 1/4 of the people, the population of the city of Detroit, are on food stamps. And so obviously they are affected by this. Here's a picture. Bertha Harris of Detroit carts food that she received Thursday at the Capuchin Services Center in Detroit to her car. So she has a car. About 1.4 million residents eligible to receive federal assistance to pay for food should get 65% of their monthly benefits. So in other words, 52% of what they're calling monthly benefits, which is basically 65% of the free food they would normally have gotten on the SNAP program for November amid the ongoing government shutdown, federal officials stated Thursday. Okay, so she has to go to the Capuchin Roman Catholic Food Bank in Detroit. Michigan residents who receive federal assistance to pay for food will get their full allotment of monthly benefits for November, state officials said. So the state of Michigan is going to jump in and pay the amount that the federal government, because it's shut down, cannot pay. Okay, well, that's something that each state has to decide whether they want to do that or not. And it looks like they are going to jump in and pay, especially the people in Detroit, because that's where the bulk of all of the food stamp recipients live in Michigan. They're going to jump in and pay the 35% left to make 100% of their food stamp bill. Here's an official. It says, we understand and share the disappointment many households feel about receiving only a portion of their November SNAP benefits, Hertel said in a statement Wednesday. Only a portion of the free food. If you're a recipient, I want to remind you that you should be happy and grateful that you get 65% of free food that you were scheduled to get. And there is no room for complaining or griping and grumbling about the fact that you're not getting as much free food as you would normally get, because when you're a beggar, you can't be choosy. That's the old saying. Beggars can't be choosy. You can't act like that money, that funding, your free food, is something that now, instead of charity, it's now something that you're entitled to. No, you're not entitled to free food. You're not entitled to free housing. You're not entitled to free clothing. You're not entitled to free transportation. You're not entitled to free health care. You're not entitled to anything free. You have to go out there and figure out a way to get that. And you have to avoid things that will keep you from getting that. This is a basic life lesson, and I guess a lot of people haven't figured it out. Now, there are actually some people who are in a temporary emergency that they've turned to the government for help, okay? And those people, that is a legitimate need. SNAP means Supplemental Nutritional Assistance Program. So it's supplemental. That means you're getting a government help to help a little bit of your food bill, supplementing your regular money. And it's an assistant program. So you're on it for just a period of time until you can get yourself back on your feet. Okay, it's a safety net. We all understand that, and that makes a lot of sense. And I think a lot of us are for that, just to have a safety net. If you fall on hard times and you've exhausted all different avenues and you still need to eat and feed your children and so on and so forth, then the government steps in and supplements your own efforts and own money with a assistant program that helps you for a month or two while you get on your feet. Whether it's you've lost your job, or whether it's you've been injured and can't work, or you have to regroup, whatever this emergency is, it's an emergency situation benefit, not a year after year generational thing, which is so prevalent today, and abusing the system. No, that's not what it's for. These benefits are a vital lifeline for Michigan families, especially with the rising cost of food. These benefits, or the free food, is a vital lifeline? No. That's making too much of the temporary assistance program. You don't want 1 million people, 1.5 million people in Michigan dependent on government for their food to exist, or else they'll starve. No, you don't want that. That is a failure of responsibility, especially among adults. It's just a terrible thing when we have, in the modern world, people who cannot figure out how to put food on their table. Is it their parents that never taught them how to think common sense, or is it society and the government that have told them that, well, they deserve a handout? Why work when you can get free stuff? Probably a combination of both. The update came as a local. Okay, listen to this. I would say that that's wonderful that they will be getting something. Christopher Ivy, spokesman for Metro Detroit Food Rescue Organization, Forgotten Harvest of the SNAP news before the ruling. It's unfortunate it won't be the full amount. Okay, well, yeah, it's unfortunate the government is shut down. It's unfortunate that the Democrats and the Republicans can't come together and formulate a budget and keep government going. It's unfortunate that there has to be a closing of many services right now while this budget battle is brewing. But let's focus on the 65% of the food budget that is coming through, and be grateful and be happy and thankful and thank God that there's something there that can, again, supplement your own earnings and your own efforts to get your own food on your own table, and assist you in doing that for a little while. Okay? It's great that that assistant program will be funded 65%. It's great that that supplemental program will be releasing some funds that have still remained in the budget there during the shutdown, instead of saying, oh, well, we don't get 100%. That's bad, crying over that. It just shows you the amount of entitlement that people have. The update came as the local food pantries are tracking 30 to 50% increase in the numbers of individuals seeking aid. Okay, that makes sense. The USDA had planned to suspend payments starting November 1st amid the federal government shutdown, but then federal officials said Monday the program would be partially funded after two judges required the government to keep SNAP benefits flowing. The reduction in food aid, while a partial restoration, is diabolical, said Natasha Bell, a downtown Detroit resident. Diabolical. So it's satanic. It's evil that they're not giving us free food. That's our money. That's our food, she's thinking. What an ungrateful person. To call it evil, to call it satanic, diabolical. What they give us is not enough already, and then for them to give us partial, it's just not right, she said. This is called entitlement. This is called ungratitude. We're coming up on Thanksgiving this month, a time of giving thanks for what you have and not looking over the fence and seeing what you don't have. And that's exactly what this ungrateful woman is doing. Listen to that. What they give us is not enough already. Oh, you mean the free food that they're already giving you is not enough? It's never enough. They should give us double the amount of food. They should give us free housing. They should give us free everything. It's not enough. And then they're only going to give us partially? Yeah, that makes a lot of sense, though, because if they only give you partial, then that means that you have to, by your own self-preservation, figure out how you're going to feed yourself, which is an adult activity anyway. You should be already thinking in terms of that instead of looking to the government every month. And that's a good question. Why is this benefit being given out every month? Why isn't it a one-time supplemental assistance program like it says, SNAP? Why isn't it a one-time thing? You need a little help to get you through the month, help you figure out how to do this for yourself so we don't have to keep feeding you. And yet this ungrateful woman is like complaining that it's only 65%. They don't give us enough anyway. They shouldn't give you anything. There should be a rule. There should be a rule that says if you complain about the free government food you're getting, then you get removed from the food stamp roll. Yeah, because that shows you're not grateful and you're not thankful and you're not praising God that anything is coming your way, because you don't deserve anything, because the people in your family should be helping support you. Your husband should be supporting the family. Where is your husband, by the way, in all these questions? She said, it's just not right. What's not right? Free food to people who can't provide for themselves? It's crazy. It's this entitlement mentality that we talk about all the time. This is not a Christian thing to do, to be ungrateful. And it's especially not a Christian thing to do to blame other people for your bad choices. Bell said that she has cancer. Oh, okay, she's got cancer. What kind of cancer? That seems to be the go-to answer. She has cancer so she can't work. What kind of cancer? Skin cancer? Is it a skin tag? I've had people in my family who have had prostate cancer. And cancer is cancer. It doesn't just affect people who have low incomes. It affects everybody. A rich person can have cancer. But there are all kinds of cancer. What kind of cancer? Skin cancer. I had an uncle who had ear cancer and had to get treatment, and they removed a little part of his ear. And when you looked at him, you could see that he had a chunk of his ear removed, a cancerous chunk. So he had cancer. Does that mean he needs to go on food stamps because he has cancer? You know, a lot of people in the welfare system have used every little excuse they can to get every benefit they can. And they can figure out ways to get everything they want. Amid the delay in SNAP benefits, she said that she's been making more side items to accompany the meat in a meal, which allow her to stretch the meat out over more days. Okay, great. There you go. You're figuring out how to be an adult, responsible person who makes do with what you have, like everybody else has to. She's taking initiative on her own. She's having to make more side items to accompany the meat in a meal. Yeah, there you go. That's a solution. We all have to come up with solutions to feed ourselves and to feed our families. We have to use our minds and not just have the government just dump food in our lap. We have to be discerning. We have to be wise. We have to watch what we spend our money on. We have to eat healthy foods, and we have to cut out all the junk food and all the sugary food and wasteful food so that we have enough for the food that really matters. And so it's great. She's having to think like an adult and be responsible, and that's a good thing. So maybe the shutdown in Washington, D.C. is really a good thing. And maybe not getting all the SNAP benefits is actually a good thing, because it showed her that she could actually figure out how to come up with solutions to food without the U.S. government doing it all. It says that it allows her to stretch the meat out over more days. That's great. And if you stretch the meat out over more days, that means you're not having to eat as many calories, and that'll probably bring your weight down. And I heard a statistic the other day that the average woman on food stamps is 50 pounds over the average woman who's not on food stamps. So the food stamp woman is over 50 pounds heavier than the non-food stamp woman in this country. What does that show you? That a lot of the food stamp benefits are going to overweight people, so they don't need all that food. Crazy, isn't it? Here's a picture of Joyce Bowens of Detroit boxes up food that she received Thursday at the Capuchin Services Center on Detroit's east side. So they're going to food pantries. That's an alternative. Again, it's not a first move. They should be looking to solve the problem by their own means. I hope they're not jumping on the food pantry bandwagon like they did on the food stamp bandwagon, because, again, that's irresponsible. You have to try to figure these problems out yourself and not expect people to feed you in this country as an adult. Bell is relying on food pantries and preparing meals that last more than one day, such as spaghetti and soup. Exactly. There you go. Now, these people are having to think on their own and come up with creative solutions. What do you know? Like people have had to do for like thousands of years. They're actually having to think and be responsible about feeding themselves. And guess what? She's figured out a way to make meals last more than one day. Isn't that great? See, she can do it. She didn't think she could. When you have hundreds of dollars flowing to you from the U.S. government every month, you tend not to think about problems like this. Well, that's a good thing. And eventually, she should get herself all off of the temporary assistant, again, program, and do what she was doing here, coming up with creative solutions so she can feed herself and her family. Something is better than nothing, she said, of the partial SNAP benefits. Again, ingratitude, ungrateful, entitled. Something is better than nothing. Sounds like she's mad that she's only getting something instead of everything. Yeah, it is better than nothing, and you better be grateful for it, and you better be thanking God for it, and bowing in prayer and saying, thank you, God, for the nice people in this country who are feeding me, and help me to have enough responsibility and initiative to get out there and feed myself and my family. Brother Gary Wegner, executive director of the Capuchin Soup Kitchen, said he thinks the USDA announcement is good news. 65% is certainly better than zero, he said. Yes. So the Roman Catholic brother, religious order brother, has a better attitude. He's saying, well, it's 65%. Thank the Lord. Praise God. It's better than zero. Yeah. He's got a little bit of a better attitude than a lot of these people that come into the food pantry. They're just looking to get. They're takers. 100% would be even better, but for now, at least, it's going to give people we serve who depend on SNAP benefits a better chance to fulfill what they need. Who is affected? SNAP serves a 1 out of 8 Americans. That is a tragic number. It doesn't have to be that way. Including 1.4 million Michiganians. 1.4 million Michigan people. In the state, the average assistant is $335 benefits a month, or $5.68 per day. That's very generous. SNAP benefits support more than 492 Michigan children. In Wayne County, 22.5% of the households received food stamps last year. So that's almost a quarter of that is almost a quarter of the population of Detroit are on food stamps. And it's not just food stamps. They're on Section 8 housing, they're on free health care, they're on cash allotments. Detroit is the benefit of billions and billions and billions every year of free stuff from the government. Bought and paid for by the Democrats. They buy votes with giving out goodies. So it just shows how heavily dependent people are, and it shows you how ungrateful a lot of these people are. Kate Bauer of the University of Michigan, ultra-liberal University of Michigan public health professor, said partial funding was better than nothing when it comes to SNAP benefits. It would ward off, hopefully, the physical experience of hunger, but leave families already stretched thin to fill the gap. Why would it leave families thin to fill the gap? Physical hunger. So the mother and the father cannot come up with enough food for their children. That's a basic parenting responsibility. And you're saying that millions of people in Michigan and across the country cannot provide basic necessities for their children. What in the world are they doing then as adults? SNAP benefits are crucial for families with children, according to Bauer, because they have more mouths to feed and mouths that don't earn an income. With less money to buy food this month, parents will likely make additional sacrifices, foregoing meals so their kids can eat. I doubt that. I doubt that these women, again, SNAP women are 50 pounds heavier than non-SNAP women. I doubt that they're going to sacrifice anything this month. One saving grace for families with children, she said, was free school lunches. Okay, so now we have another government welfare program that we can talk about, and that is the free school lunches. And she didn't even mention the free school breakfasts. So when these women are like, I've got food, I've got children to feed, it's really like, no, you really don't, because the school is feeding them 2 meals a day. When they come in the door, they get fed breakfast, and then they get fed lunch. And the only meal that you have responsibility in this modern world is supper, dinner time. Don't you think you can come up with something to feed the children one time a day? See, they don't ever say that, though. When they're in the line at the soup kitchen, they never bring up the fact that the kids are already getting fed at school. Many families are breathing a sigh of relief that the kids are getting potentially up to 10 meals a week. Yeah, finally, they're mentioning that. Joyce Bowman's, a Detroit resident who uses SNAP, said Thursday before the news of the judge's ruling that she's not too happy with the government's decision because 65% benefits is not enough. Yeah, it's never enough. These are greedy people who always want more and more and more, and they're not grateful for what they even have. This is a temporary assistance, supplemental assistance program, and she's acting like this is something that she should be receiving every month for the rest of her life. She said some women have 7 to 10 children. Okay, and we're not supposed to ask anything about that situation. We're not supposed to ask the question, where are the fathers of these 7 and 10 children? Are they all different fathers? And was she ever married to any of them? No, probably not. And yet she was able to get SNAP benefits every month, every year for these children, and that was her means of support. That is not right. That is wrong. That is not God's will. I don't think it's fair, she said. I don't think it's right. What is not right? That the government is not able to provide free food this month? Again, the responsibility is with the adults and the fathers and mothers. She said the past week has been stressful. Yeah, when you are so heavily dependent on the government, it is stressful when there's a hiccup in the system. You shouldn't be that dependent on it. This is a wake-up call for you and all these other millions of people on SNAP. Hey, get off this. Get yourself situated so you know how to feed yourself. This is a basic. Put your phone down, put your iPhone down, stop spending money on cable and internet and all this other junk, and get the basics right. You got to provide housing for your family. You got to provide food for your family. You got to provide clothing for your family. Get the basics right before you spend all your money on all this other junk. And don't spend money on sugary drinks. That's like one of the biggest budget items for the food stamps recipients, is that they spend a huge amount on sugary drinks. That is just foolishness. Okay, you would normally cook a meal. Don't worry about making it stretch, she said. Now we have to think about making it stretch to the T. Yeah, okay, that's an adult responsibility decision. You have to make ends meet, that's called. That's what adults do in life. The money isn't always there, so you have to make ends meet. You have to stretch the dollar. And so your SNAP benefit, your free government handout, is not coming through. Well, you've got to make do with what you have. A lot of ingratitude, and that is wrong. That is wrong. So hopefully, let's pray for the people on this assistance program that they will get their priorities right and get their attitudes right. Talk to you next week. Another program. God bless.